What is going on, guys? This is Daniel, and today I'm bringing you a Washington Wizards offensive breakdown. All footage is from Game 1 between the Wizards and the Pacers, and the Wizards offense is a bit of a mixed bag. They're clearly well coached, and they understand offensive basketball, but at the same time, their offense gets a little too pick and roll heavy, and they don't run enough set plays. Also, there is some good defensive pick and roll stuff on why ice defense really is the best method, so let's get to it. First, let's start with post-ups, and the sign of a well-coached team is how the off-ball players cut and space out, and here Beal nicely cuts the rim and gets a layup. Here, for some reason, they post up Martell Webster, who's a three-point shooting specialist, and it is no surprise it ends with a turnover. On this play, Gortat posts up, and there's pretty solid spacing. The passer cuts through, and Gortat gets a good look, but he just can't finish. Nene will post up here, and notice on the weak side they're going to set a double staggered screen for Beal, and at the very least this distracts the weak side defenders, and here even though Nene misses at the basket, Gooden is able to tip it in when the defense collapses. Here the Wizards run the Spurs loop play where Bradley Beal will receive 3 screens around the loop, and here he cuts it back on the first side and he should be either shooting a 3-pointer or curling it to the basket. Instead he settles for the inefficient long 2. Here, Lance Stevenson on the loop play does a great job chasing Beal, so they go into pick and roll, and Beal does a nice job finding an open man, and they get a basket out of this. And this is cringeworthy stuff, folks, as again, Beal decides to take a long 2 with his foot on the line this time, instead of attacking the basket or taking a 3-pointer. One more play out of the Spurs playbook as the Wizards run motion weak, and I made a detailed breakdown about it a week ago, so you can see the rest there, but the basics is a cross screen in the lane for the big man, and some screen-to-screener action for the wing going to the top. Here they hit the big man on the cross screen and he posts up and finds a man for an open shot. This is pinch post, where the ball handler will hit the big man at the high post and then cut around them looking for a handoff, and Nene here uses that to attack the basket and get a layup. And folks, this is not how you run it, as the two players bump into each other and it eventually leads to a bad shot. Now let's talk about Indiana's pick and roll defense, which they did a great job of in this game where they iced it. This is where the ball handler fights over the top of the screen and the person guarding the screener sags low to prevent the drive and bait John Wall in this case into taking a long 2, which Wall abided to way too often in this game. I mean, the way Indiana is playing these pick and rolls, I would not be surprised one bit if this series became a real slugfest. Notice here how the big man contains the drive and contains the roll man, and they deflect the ball. Again, the Pacers do a great job using ice to contain the drive, but they unfortunately get an unlucky bounce and Ariza drains the 3. Beautiful stuff here. They contain the pick and roll of ice defense. Paul George closes out on Ariza, and they provide interior help defense to force a shot clock violation. If the Wizards are to win this series, John Wall has to do a better job resisting the temptation to take these long jumpers. Plain and simple, he needs to attack slower sagging big man like Luis Scola instead of settling. And on this pick and roll, having 2 wings on the strong side of the pick and roll is a spacing nightmare, and it directly leads to a turnover. And because Beal is a better shooter, it is a little more excusable for him to be taking these shots, but not by much. And no, basketball fans, this is not a replay. Now when the defense allows middle on the pick and roll and the big man sags, it basically turns into a 2-on-1 for the sagging big man, and here they find Nene for a wide open jump shot. It is critical you force sideline, because if you don't, bad things will happen and Nene gets a dunk here. Here they run a high post split for Andre Miller where they'll screen Miller into a dribble pitch, and I'm not a fan of this with Miller for a few reasons. One, CJ Watson can go under this screen since Miller isn't a good shooter, and Miller is a bit slow for this play in my opinion. Here they run it again for Miller, and this is really not a good idea. But when they do this for the better shooting, more athletic Ariza, this leads to middle penetration on the middle pick and roll, and they find Gortat for a dunk. They should run this more often. A nice set here where Gortat will back screen Beal and then set a pick and roll for Wall, but the Indiana Pacers play it nicely and force Wall into a mid-range jump shot when they perform ice. From what I've seen, the Wizards are one of the best teams in the league at setting flare screens even if it's not a set play, and here Gortat sets an alert one on Paul George when he strays too far from Ariza, and Ariza gets a wide open 3. And an absolute gorgeous set right here where it'll go into pinch post with Beal and Nene, and when Beal doesn't get the handoff, he sets a cross screen for Webster, and then he'll receive his own down screen, but Wall completely misses Webster wide open under the basket for a layup. That stalls the offense and they get a bad shot. The Wizards will UCLA cut into a pick and roll, and because the Pacers hedge this pick and roll, Wall should be looking to get it out of his hands to Gortat immediately. That doesn't happen, but Gooden still hits the tough shot. Here again, the Wizards go UCLA cut into a pick and roll, and they get Nene in the post, but notice how bad the weak side spacing is, so Nene's only choice is to step back and fade for a jump shot. But for all the half-court sets, Wall is most effective in the open court, and here they find Ariza for a 3 in transition. But they still have occurrences like this, where they have a 3-on-1, but both wings should be attacking the basket, especially since it's Ariza and Wall who are both athletic, but instead they run to the 3-point line and lose the advantage. On a 4-on-3, you run to the 3-point line, not on a 3-on-1, you should be going to the rim to get a dunk. Well, there you have it, guys. The Wizards certainly have the talent to be an elite offensive team, and I've seen offensive glimpses of great sets and plays, but I don't see it often enough, so we'll see how they improve and how they do the rest of this series. That being said, the Pacers do play ice very well, and that could run the Wizards into some trouble. Well, thanks for watching, and see you next time.